Um, no, it's super weird right now because like I've been like looking at your Instagram, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
I like scroll through your Instagram and then your Twitter, and then I'm like, oh, like I'm like stalking someone right now, which is like totally, especially now with like everything that's been going over in the past couple of weeks, especially with like the Sonya Deville
Oh,
thing that
that's
happened,
true. Yeah.
and I'm like, is there a like I don't know. It's like even when I message you, I have that like thing of like I don't know if there's like a not creepy way to do this. I don't know. Like I
Yeah.
get like overly paranoid about it probably, um but as I was like going through it, I was reading about you and I was talking to my wife like she's it's been kind of fun talking to her. She's like, why are you always looking at girls on like Instagram and stuff? And I'm like, no, like it's an all woman pay-per-view happening, so it's just gonna be this way for a little bit. But anyway, I was looking at like all your stuff and I'm like, oh man, I like this girl. I like all the stuff she's into. And she's like, okay, well, don't be weird. And I'm like, no. Literally, I've been looking at all her stuff. It's Raychell Rose. She's easy. And she's like, please, God, don't say that.
Oh,
like, and I'm like, oh, and now I've done it.
now you
she's
said
like,
it.
she's
At
like,
least you got
Jesus,
it out of
Gary,
the
you
way.
cannot go on there and say you're going to be easy.
At least it's out of the way.
It's,
That's the most awkward it could get.
right. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but no. Like you're, so I do another show besides this one, and it's like all movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're like we've been doing it for a while, but anyway, like we're literally starting in September going into this whole thing about George Romero from Night of the Living Dead, and we're going to be talking about Tom Savini, who's like a makeup artist, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but the stuff you do is just pretty impressive, like the stuff I've seen from you. And so I was
Thank
like,
you.
I think we've got stuff to talk about. But
Yes.
anyway, all right. So I promise you, like up top, you did a really good interview with Ella J is her name, and I don't know her personally, but it's like a wrestling gal or
Yeah.
yeah. And so I would encourage people to listen to that, like if they want to get like really deep into your bio or something, because you guys did a lot of that. But
Good.
I mean, just essentially, like it sounds like you grew up like watching wrestling with your dad. Is that right? Like you and your sister?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So did you? I guess the question would be. Oh, by the way, Raychell Rose is on with me right now, and we're recording, and I've just been just like rambling on. So I appreciate you being so patient with me. So at what point did you just decide, like after you're watching wrestling, like I mean, like were you into it? Like were you in school, like talking to other people that watched wrestling, and you were like, yeah, I love wrestling, and you just had to tune into it and that sort of thing? Like what was the level of interest for you?
So I think by like middle school, I was a wrestling like weirdo in school. Cause like by middle school, like I talked about it, like I would do, like if I could figure out a way to put it into like projects,
Right.
I would, cause then I could just watch wrestling to like do schoolwork technically. And then by high school was when I started kind of, it was like one of the things I could see myself doing. And I had that teacher make fun of me one time, just like in front of the whole class, because she was like doing the whole, like, what do you want to be? Like when you get out of high school to like everybody. And I was like, oh, well, I kind of want to be a wrestler. And she was like, okay, you're not in kindergarten. And she was like, be realistic. And I was like,
Wow.
oh. And then I went back to visit my high school recently. Not this year, obviously, but last year.
Right.
And I saw her and she was like, oh, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing really good. And she was like, what are you up to? And I was like, well, I'm a wrestler. And she was like, oh, well, good for you. And she was just like really awkward. And I was like, I really hope she remembered that.
Oh, I hope she did too. She deserves that. Okay, so you caught on to it like earlier than I thought. Like you thought you were going to be a wrestler early on, and so you have. So like, what is the thing that this is always curious to me because I don't know, man. I grew up like wanting to do a lot of things, and
Mm-hmm.
like in wrestling, I've always just enjoyed wrestling since I was like 4 years old, but what's the step that like pushed you to the next level of like, well, now it's not just the thing I'm talking about. Like, I'm actually gonna go do this.
Well, for a while it was like wrestling was like my ideal goal, but I knew it was a stretch. So I had like other things that like I would be happy doing. And then whenever I met Booker at Kroger's, he told me about his school, and I knew he had a show, but I didn't know it was a school.
So you met
And
Booker
so
T at Kroger's. Wait,
I
go
did.
back. I feel like we do have to establish this. So what is the story there? Like most people don't just have like a I met Booker at Kroger story.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's something that me and like anytime he has the chance to bring it up, he does around me, and I'm like, yes, Booker. But yeah, so he lives pretty close to me, and I was in high school, and I went grocery shopping with my sister, and Booker was there, and I freaked out and ran to the other side of the store because I was petrified. And my sister, I came back to the aisle, and my sister was talking to him, and she likes wrestling, but she's not as much. Like, she didn't know as much about wrestling. Like, I had to tell her who Booker was originally. And so obviously she waves me over, and then I started talking to him as well. And that's when he mentioned he had the school. Because my sister just blurts out that I want to be a diva, or it was a diva at the time.
Right.
And he told me about his school, and I ran home and told my dad. And that was like the first like tangible like route I had to being a wrestler. Like before I was like, well, I really want to do it, but I have no idea like how I would possibly like go about this. But now I had like a tangible like way in to possibly start this. So it was like more real.
Yeah. So like a couple of things. Like I was thinking about this story, and I'm like, your sister, like, so she's not that into wrestling because she seems like super outgoing that she just like randomly starts talking to Booker T in the supermarket.
She's usually not, and that's why I was really surprised to come back to her talking to Booker, because I told her not to, and then she did, and I was mortified at first.
You think it was like easier for her because she's just like, I don't even know who this guy is. So
I think a small part of her wanted to see me struggle through that. I think a small part of her wanted to see me like.
That's awesome. Oh man, he's got like a history of stuff in supermarkets. Like he's got a whole famous thing with Stone Cold. So it's like you and Stone Cold are gonna like eventually those are gonna be the famous supermarket Booker T stories.
Absolutely.
I feel like.
And then me and Stone Cold have to be on a podcast and talk about our Booker T.
Yeah, exactly.
Supermarket stories.
His got a little wilder than yours, but I'm you should have hit him in the head with like a loaf of bread or something just to turn it around.
I don't think that would be a good career choice.
You're probably right. So did you? So I'm thinking like if you're thinking about it and it's like I might do this. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like a cool thing to do. But then you meet Booker T at Kroger. Mm-hmm. Did it sort of feel like you're like now I'm obligated to do this thing because it feels like you're just this is fate, like this has to happen.
Yeah, so as soon as he mentioned it, I went home and looked up reality wrestling, and it's literally like 30 minutes with traffic from my house, and that was just so crazy to me because I was like, there's like, what are the chances that I live so close to like a school that's run by a Hall of Famer, like not just anybody, but Booker T. And I meet him at Kroger's one day, and he just tells me like all the things I need to know to get started. Like, so I was just like, well, I have to try. Like, I was like, there's no excuse for me not to try. Like, if I don't make it, if it's not for me, that's fine. But like, there's no reason I can't try and do this.
So when you went, like, I mean, was it like a pretty I'm sorry to spend so much time on this, but was this like a welcoming time? Like, did it feel easy to walk in there? Like everybody was cool?
So I first did a fantasy camp, which is like a 1-day event that they do. And it's for just fans who want to see what it's like to roll around. And then also, if you want to be a wrestler, it's kind of a way to see, like gauge the waters and see if this is kind of for you or if you're just, it's not what you expected at all kind of situation. So my dad told me I had to A, graduate high school, and then B, do the fantasy camps. To basically figure out if I am just really bad at this,
Right.
Before we spend a bunch of money on it. And so as soon as I walked into fantasy camp, I saw Charmel first, and I obviously knew who Charmel was.
Right.
I was the first person there, and I was terrified. So she says hi to me, and she's like, "Hi, what's your name?" And I said, "Hi, I'm Kelly," because that's my name. And in a blind moment of just like how you say you too when someone says enjoy your movie.
Right. Yeah.
I said, "Nice to meet you. What's your name?" to Charmel. And I was like, "Oh, now she thinks I don't know who she is." And she was like, "I'm Charmel." And I freaked out. I was like, "I knew that. I definitely knew that. I'm so sorry." And she was like, "No, it's okay." And she was just showed me where I could wait. And then one of the trainers that day was for the fantasy camp was Kylie.
Okay.
And as soon as she came in, it was super easy. She was just she's so her. She's very bubbly and very energetic.
I was about to ask, so it's not just a gimmick. It's a...
No, that's just Kylie. And she's very good, I feel at making people feel comfortable. So her being super bubbly, energetic is oh, that's a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've seen her kind of calm down and be like, "Well, are you okay? What do you need?" kind of situation. So she was the female coach that day, and it was just me really for girls that day. So I just kind of hung out with Kylie, and she showed me how to do everything, and it was pretty fun, and I loved it. And yeah, so as soon as I came in, once I got past the awkward Charmel moment, it was all super welcoming and super fun.
Yeah. Do you remember, did you have a time at any point during this where you were just I don't know if this is the right thing for me? Was there any, or did it just feel natural the whole time?
During the fantasy camp, everything, they don't do anything super hard during fantasy camp because they don't want anybody to get hurt. But as far as conditioning stuff, I've been in dance and things throughout high school, so I wasn't completely non-athletic, but it's a completely different thing for wrestling. So during fantasy camp, I didn't really have that thought. I think I was just so excited to be a part of it and get to see how things work. Later on, there's definitely been moments where you question yourself and you question am I good enough, or is this am I giving myself too much credit, thinking that I can do this and keep with it and things like that. I think that's something that kind of goes through everyone's head every once in a while when they're training. And if it doesn't, then it might just be me. But I've definitely gone home from training a couple of times and been like, "Man, that was rough."
No. It's I'm sitting here talking to you, and you're it's nice that you're so humble about what you're saying, but I'm watching you, and I have seen your matches. I've seen you wrestle, and you carry yourself with a lot of confidence. And
Thank you.
so it just makes me curious, during that process, where's this girl go from, I think I'm going to do it, I'm too scared to talk to Booker T, to she's now this is my space. I'm the queen of, the House of Rose,
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing. I'm just wondering, because wrestling, I think for most people, you got to have a pretty thick skin for doing this.
Oh yeah.
It's not an easy process. So I don't think anybody just decides, no offense, I'm going to put on my underwear and I'm going to go out and stand in front of a bunch of people in the middle of a wrestling ring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just curious to me, always. I don't know. I got stopped early on. I was I'd love to be a wrestler. I didn't do anything, you know, but it's like,
Yeah.
you have to have like something special inside you that's like clicking. That's like, no, I'm going to go to the school. All right. Now I'm in the school. Now I'm going to keep going. And I imagine at some point somebody throws you somewhere or punches you in the face or, you know, or something, or you're like a fan yells something stupid and you just, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first time I really thought about it for a second and was like, okay, do I want to do this? Like keep putting myself through these things. Like, is it worth that much to me? Spoiler, it is.
Right.
But I was at training and we learned sunset flips. Do you know what a sunset flip is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I don't know how to explain them. They're hard
I'm
to
a super
explain.
nerd, so don't worry about it.
But yeah, so we were learning how to give and take sunset flips. And the person I went with, I'm not the shortest of girls. And the person I went with wasn't the tallest of guys. So whenever I jumped over him, I had my hands on his hips and I didn't have a lot of space to get under his legs to come to my butt. And he didn't have the best of bases. I don't think it's fast in the moment, but that's what it seems like. But we fell backwards instead of staying there. And my hands were trapped on his hips because he was bent over. And so I didn't have anywhere to catch myself. And I just lawn darted into the mat with my face and scorpioned over my neck and got a concussion just immediately. I was like, oh.
Wow.
And yeah, it was pretty scary. And it was the first time that I think I really got anything that wasn't more than like minor discomfort.
Yeah.
But my trainers were really cool. And my one trainer, he went and got my stuff for me and like had me lay down, got some ice. And then he drove me home because I couldn't drive. So he drove me home. He asked if I wanted to go to the doctor, and my dummy butt said no.
Right.
But he did ask to take me to the doctor, and I told him no. So he took me home, and he talked to my dad and kind of told him, it was like, hey, she took a pretty bad fall. And for a couple days, like a week, I was like just a little off, but I had a pretty bad headache and stuff like that. And it scared me more than anything.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I was like, okay, hold on. Wait a minute. That was scary. And
how's your family during this too? Like, I mean, when your dad gets that news with you?
I mean, I think it scares him, but he's a fan of wrestling, so I think it's easier to justify to him than parents who don't watch it and don't understand it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like obviously he doesn't want me to get hurt, but he also understands that that's a part of the business. And I think because he's one of the people I sat down and talked with, and he was like, if like it makes you happy enough and it makes you like, if you feel in your heart that this is where you want to be enough to justify that you are going to get your bell rung like that and you're going to get hurt like that at points, and it's worth it to you, then we'll keep doing it. And I was like, yeah. I was like, it's okay. I was like, I'm fine. So
yeah. And I mean, you did it. Like you've been really cool. Like I saw, man, I watched just today I was watching you versus like Thunder Rosa. And that was a fun match. Like I was watching and I was like, I mean, you know, obviously a lot of the thing for us is like, I'm seeing and talking to a lot of the women out of Texas. And so I know a lot of you are from that general area and stuff like that. So over where I'm out of like South Carolina. So we're still Southern wrestling over here, but like it's just a different segment of it. And so I don't see all of you as often. And so this is one of the first times we're getting a chance to like get a glimpse of everybody really. With somebody like Thunder Rosa, who's like now, especially now that she's like on NWA and AEW and everywhere else, she's like nationally known. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'm like watching all this and I'm like, let's see what Raychell Rose has got. And I'm like, dang, man, she's really good. Like I'm like watching this Thunder
Thank
Rose
you.
match, and I'm like, man, this is fun. And so and you're not, and you're so all of that to say, I feel like I'm talking too much, but all of that to say, like, you're not just some newbie now. Like you've been in it for a little while, and you've won titles. Like you've already had like a title win here not too long ago. Actually, I guess it wasn't now, right?
It feels like it wasn't, but I think that's because of the pandemic. Because I got like a notification.
Time means nothing now. I have
it
no
truly
idea.
doesn't. But I got a notification that it was a year ago, and I was like,
a year ago? I'm sorry.
I was like, what? I was like, I feel like I've had this for like 2 months. What's happening?
So what's that like, going from being you, like being through all this stuff we're talking about right now, and then now you're a champion? Like what is that process like?
It's crazy. So even when I won it, I would like justify it almost, because like my family would be freaking out. They were like, "Oh, holy shit, that is so cool!" And I was like, "Well, I'm a girl, and there's like less girls, so it's easier for girls to win championships because there's not as many of us." So and like stuff like that, I would like justify how I won this title,
Right.
and like eventually, I think the longer you do it, the longer you, or the more like confidence in your abilities you get. And while like I still have obviously so much more to learn, I can like give myself some credit and be like, well, no, they trust me to like carry this for them, and they trust me to put me in this position to have these matches for them and things like that. So I think it just takes a little bit to get that confidence in yourself and your abilities to like believe that you deserve to be where you are.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what's that like for you, like going into, say, the day that you win the championship? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, what's that like for you, knowing that you're about to take on this? I mean, it's a responsibility, like somebody's putting all that faith in you.
Well, that day specifically was pretty crazy, and I didn't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I said I would do the show for RWR, Renegades Wrestling Revolution in Houston, and I had actually never worked one of their shows before. I had worked shows where their talent was on, and I had worked and met and known their like promoter before, but we had never been able to work out like a schedule. So the days leading up to that match, my sister, she ended up in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't know what was wrong at first. They kept saying like pancreas, appendix, liver, like they were going all over the place. So we didn't know what was going on. So I went to be with her at the hospital. And the day before, I stayed overnight with her at the hospital because she was, I didn't feel like leaving her there by herself.
Right.
But hospitals don't give beds to visitors. So I slept for like 3 hours on a hospital floor.
Oh, wow.
And then was this close to canceling the show because I was just tired and stressed. But I had canceled on them before, not super last minute, but just I hadn't been able to make their shows. And so I felt bad. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do the show and I'll come right back. And she was totally cool with it. So I go, I get there. They tell me I'm going to have this match. It'll be against Angelica, mm-hmm. I believe. And then afterwards, I was going to have a run-in with the champion and demand a match with her. And then I would lose the match. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I do the first match, do the run-in, and I expected a kick out of my move. And she snagged onto me and held me there for the 3. And I was like, oh my God. Cause I thought I just messed up this whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Cause I was stressed and sleep deprived and just had another match and all these things. And so I just celebrated because I couldn't not celebrate out there if I just won a title, like for fans. And then I went to the back holding the title, and I went up to the promoter. I was like, I think I messed up. And he just started laughing at me. And he was like, no. And he was like, that's what was supposed to happen. And he was like, we've been planning it for a while. And with everything going on, we thought you could use like a surprise, and we didn't want you to stress about it. And because it was like a really quick match. And so they
weird thing to spring on somebody.
Yeah. I was like, y'all could have just told me. And I was like, I almost had a panic attack. Like, why are you doing this to me? But yeah, so I didn't know actually until after it happened that I was champion now.
That's amazing. That's a really cool story. You've got a lot of good backstory, I think, and it's crazy. Like watching you now, like you seem like you've really busted your ass, and you're doing a good job. Like,
Thank
and
you.
it's really cool to see. And you're in the middle. Like as I'm looking at all this stuff, I get like super excited because I'm like, all of these people are really good. Like you, like I said, I saw you and Thunder Rosa, and I want to know more about, and I've heard you talk about her. So I'm going to spring this on you, but Hyan, like tell me about Hyan. Like, cause I heard you say in the other podcast, in a wrestling guy, like you wish you could get another shot with Hyan. Like what is it about her that stands out to you?
She's just all like, before we were really close, I just looked up to her in reality of wrestling because she was the way she carries herself, watching her put matches together.
Yeah.
She's been one of the main people that have like helped me with psychology in matches and like story and like really getting that connection. And so I've always looked up to her, and then we have become really close with each other. So like I consider her one of my best friends, and she's she's been my trainer before. She lives up by Chicago now, but like we have a group chat together. We talk almost every day. She's just one of my favorite people, and I think she is one of the most talented people in the ring. And every time I've gotten in the ring with her, I've gotten better. Like I feel myself, even because like our first couple of matches were a little rough on my end. I didn't do the best, I feel, in those matches, but I felt myself get better, like at something or learn something. And every match we have, I just like, they keep getting better. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's part of what this is all about. Like you.
Yeah. So she's one of my favorite people to be around, to learn from, and to be in the ring training with or having matches with. I think that I've gotten something valuable and useful out of all of our interactions in the ring.
Yeah, that's really cool. The other person I wanted to ask you about, and I'm sorry to keep putting you on the spot about like other people, but
no, I'm here for it.
you've so as I'm scrolling through your like Twitter feed and stuff, and one thing I think is really cool about you is you're very outspoken about what you think about things, and obviously wrestling's been like, I'm not trying to get all deep into this thing, but with the speaking out movement and stuff like that, like there's been a lot of deeper stuff going on in general, which frankly should happen. But one of your best friends, it sounds like too, is Roxy, and like Roxy and Hyan. I keep seeing their names pop up all over the place. By the way, she's on the show with you at Mission Pro, and I've if you don't hate me at the end of this, tell her to check her messages because she's like one of the only ones. But sorry to put you on this. sorry to put you on the spot on that. But anyway,
I'm gonna call her right now and be like, "Hey,
just call Roxy, check your messages." Anyway, no, Roxy seems really cool too. Like, I guess, like, is she like your best friend, or is she seems like, I know you just said hi, but like Roxy and you seem pretty close too.
Yeah, she's in the group chat. We're like all. I feel like
group chat. Yeah.
We're all like a group. Like, you know what I mean? Like anytime we can all get on a show together, or if Ion's in town, Roxy comes in town. If she can at the time, and we all try and stay as close as we can. With obviously she is in Laredo, Ion's up by Chicago now, And yeah, we're all like, I would consider them two of my best friends in wrestling for sure.
Well, I think one of the things I'm thinking of is like, I've heard you talk about these people before, so I wanted to bring them up, and they both seem like really talented people, just like yourself. And it's like, I don't know, like you hear all the old school stories with wrestling being so cutthroat, but like you have literally had story after story right now, just talking to me about people that are just really cool with you. And
Yeah,
like,
I don't know where this cutthroatness comes from. Like, I get it, I do, because I mean, obviously, back then, I'm sure it probably was more. But I think I've met like maybe two people in wrestling that I don't gel with, and that we've had like backstage issues. But even them, I just try my best to avoid them, and like if we're on shows together, it happens, and I just go my way, they go their way, like, you know what I mean, like even
yeah.
people you don't care for, I feel like it's really easy to just mind your business and like I don't enjoy having problems with people, you know what I mean, but for the most part, like 98% of anyone I've met in wrestling has been phenomenal, especially the women. I could go on for hours about how many women have helped me and gone out of their way to help me further my career.
If
And
you like trusted like Hollywood and stuff like that, you'd think that like the women and there being like you talked about earlier, like there's not that many of us, and like you'd feel like that would make it even more like vicious or something. And it sounds like it's really just not that way. Like everybody's trying to be supportive and help everybody
yeah,
succeed, and
I
that's
think
cool. I'm not trying. I don't hope that that's not the case, but I just
no,
mean
for
it.
sure. No, I mean, I'm sure some places are more, catty or cutthroat. But the locker rooms and the shows I've been on and the communities I've been able to be a part of have all just been super welcoming and protective, and like gone out of their way, like I said, to help other people and make sure like everyone eats like at the
Yeah,
table. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, so I've had so many just incredible experiences with other wrestlers, especially the women, guys too, obviously, but the women have just like majority of the time gone out of their way to help each other.
Right. So who would you say like probably like if you had to pick right now, like who's your favorite person to be in the ring with that you've been in the ring with so far?
I would say Lainey Love,
Really?
and
Okay.
she's me and her are close. We've been friends, but me and her, I feel like our matches just are like easy. Like I feel like we could get in there with little to nothing and have a like banger of a match. I feel like we just have like a special chemistry in the ring where we don't really have to communicate too much. We know what each other's thinking. We know where we're going. So they're fun and they're easy, and I enjoy doing them. So as far as like favorite in that in those terms, I would say Lainey Luck for sure.
Sure. So right before this quarantine happened, I saw a bunch of pictures of you like what happened to your arm?
Oh, yeah. So
Oh yeah, that.
I tore the labrum in my left shoulder.
Okay.
And the labrum is what is like the cartilage pieces that connect your bone to your like rotator cuff
Right.
and those like ligaments and tendons. So my rotator cuff was fully intact. There was nothing wrong with that. And my bone wasn't fractured or anything, but that cartilage had torn off the bone. So it was like a slap tear, which is a superior labrum, anterior, and posterior tear. So basically what it means is in the MRI, they could see the tear from the front and the back of the MRI, and it was on top of my shoulder. So basically the entire top piece of my labrum had separated from the bone.
Oh wow. Jeez.
Yeah. And it happened, I think it like really happened in like July last year, because I remember a specific match where my shoulder was absolutely killing me afterwards. I don't know what happened in the match. I didn't feel anything in the match, but afterwards, like I couldn't drink my beer. Like I couldn't like, you know what I mean?
Oh wow. Yeah.
And so I rested and iced and heat and all that stuff for a while, and it seemed okay. And so I was like, oh, okay, I won't go to the doctor because I probably just tweaked something and it's fine. And then over time, it just became more and more of a problem. Little things started really bugging me. Sleeping started bugging me. If like I didn't have the same range of motion. So I finally went to the doctor, and yeah, they told me I had a torn labrum and that I most likely needed surgery. And I stopped wrestling, obviously. And I was off from September to February of this year.
Wow. So, so you've wrestled since then, right?
Yes. So before the Corona happened,
Right. Exactly.
I was making my return. So before Corona, I had my triple threat match at RWR, and then I had a tag match at Ladies Night Out. And then the week everything got canceled, that week, 2 days after everything got canceled, I was supposed to wrestle Kylie Ray for like our second match. And that was going to be my first singles match back from injury. And then it got canceled.
How's that feel? That's got to be a bummer.
No, it sucked really bad. Yeah. I was pretty upset.
God, that's yeah, I was just curious about that because that's, well, so it's cool to hear, like, I mean, from I feel like once you tear your labrum, for God's sake, that's like eventually, like, like, okay, this is for me. Like, I just like ripped my shoulder off and like, I'm still going to do this. Like, it's so that's that gives you some street cred, I feel like. But man, so what do you, and then you're like, I'm making my return. Just kidding. Sorry. I'm going to go hole up in my place for a while.
Yeah, I was like, oh, is this what we're doing? Okay.
So what have you been like? I know you probably get this question all the time, but like, what do you do with yourself when that happens? Like, and you can't. I mean, have you wrestled since the quarantine started at all?
Yeah, so recently in the past, like I'd say like 2 months,
Okay.
We've been doing indoor no fan tapings at Reality of Wrestling.
Okay.
And then we did our first live drive-in show. So it was outside in the parking lot, and fans drove in like a drive-in movie theater, and they could have their lawn chairs and things.
I saw that actually. I don't know why I asked you like that was a question. I did see you in one of those.
I don't believe my match from that has aired yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw you guys had like Reality of Wrestling, like had the or it was something like that with like cars around the ring and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've wrestled a couple of times since the quarantine has happened.
Okay. And so you're not going into Hell Hath No Fury like just completely rusty. Like you've been back in the ring. So
yeah.
All right. So you yeah, I saw you're going up against Elena Black. Do you have any familiarity with her whatsoever?
I mean, we run in overlapping circles.
Okay.
She has some friends up there that I am friends with and things like that. And I went up to Chicago for Shimmer Weekend last year, and I met her there. So I've met her and we've talked, and I've seen, matches of hers and things. So we're not like super close, and we haven't had a lot of interaction, but I have had the chance to interact with her before.
Okay, it's going to be interesting, and I'll talk to you more about that in just a second. But I'm curious, are you still baking? I know that was a weird transition. I'm still not very good at this, I guess. I don't know. It just hit me. I was like sitting here thinking about it. I'm like, I'm about baking cupcakes and stuff too. I was curious about that.
Yeah, I made brownies recently.
Yeah, it seemed like when quarantine first started, like a lot of people got into baking or something, or there were like all these, like weird shows on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of people started making bread.
Right, exactly.
All over Twitter, all my friends just started making bread for some reason, and I was like, okay.
Well, I was hoping I was going to ask you, and you would be able to explain that to me, but it sounds like not. I don't know. I heard you mention.
No, I don't get the bread thing, but I do get. I mean, I get everyone trying to find like something to do with themselves. But why that blew up, I'm not sure. But everyone had fun. I like their bread looked nice, so good for them.
So I gotta ask you about speaking of baking. I want to talk to you about nerdy things for a minute if I can, because I'm a nerd myself, obviously, and so I'm I guess I'm looking at your stuff, and like you do a lot of, it looks like cosplay stuff, and you do like special effects, like makeup, and how does that come about? Because now like I'm sure that you're younger than me and you're my hero. So I want to know, like I'm like talking to you and I'm like, why is she my hero? But she's like doing everything I think is cool. Like she's already doing all of this stuff. Like you did like for instance, on, if people look at your Instagram, there is a eye makeup job you did not too long ago, probably like 10 years
ago.
I'm like,
You're like, not too long again. Is time even real anymore?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just scrolling through things and watching things now, and I'm just,
you're like, I only had to scroll 4 times to get to it, so I'm assuming.
Right, it had to have been like last week or something. You post a lot, okay? No, I'm just kidding. But you were like, oh yeah, I just did this thing today. Here's this freaking person who has no eyeball in their skull. It was just a thing I just decided on. I'm like, Jesus, what is that? Like, that is not a thing somebody just does in a day. Like, so you got to talk to me about your, like, where all that comes from.
So yeah, I'm a weird person, and I've always been a weird person. So I've always been into like weird things. I really enjoy makeup of all kinds, and before I really thought wrestling was a viable option, that's kind of what I wanted to go into, was like makeup of some type, either SFX makeup, movie makeup, stunt makeup, or like normal beauty makeup. So I started watching this girl on YouTube forever ago. Her name's Mikey, and she runs a channel called Glam and Gore, which I was like, glam makeup and SFX makeup, this is perfect.
Right.
So she's where I learned like pretty much anything I know about SFX makeup. Like I've never been taught special effects makeup. But she's a very good teacher. If you want to learn, go look up Mikey Glam and Gore. She's really good.
Nice.
She does other types of videos now because it's been like 5 years, but you know. So yeah, it was just seemed really fun. And then I was still in school, and we did, for I think like a midterm or something in theater class, we had to do like a character makeup. And it was really fun. We had to turn ourselves into some type of animal from like any work of fiction. So like it could be realistic, it could be like whatever. I picked Scar from The Lion King. I had black hair then, so I was like, oh, it's kind of like his mane. I could like make it look like a mane. And so I picked Scar. And that was the first time I did like a character. And I was like, okay, well, that was really fun. And I just kind of started doing more of it. And then I started branching out, bought some liquid latex and some cotton pads, and started learning how to do that. And I've always been into art and stuff. So as far as the coloring and things like that, and like painting of the prosthetics, it kind of translated over. But the more I did, the more I just really enjoyed, because it's one of the only ways you can like transform a person is like doing SFX makeup and things. And so it was just really cool to see like how realistic I could get it, or if I could trick anybody, which the eye one made some of my friends mad. Because I had one of my friends call me, and she was like, I straight thought you got injured. She was like, why? I was just so concerned why you would post that on Instagram. And she was like, it took me a second to get that it was makeup.
No, that's awesome about your special effects stuff. Like, do you know who Tom Savini is? Like, if I say that name, have you heard of him?
I've heard of him, yeah.
So he like, you make me want to get you like on the other show we do, just to like watch it, because we're doing like a whole thing on him now. He was in the Vietnam War, and he was a combat photographer in Vietnam, and so he came back, and now he's like widely known in like Hollywood as like one of the best like effects guys, like gore guys.
Well, yeah, I feel like
and yeah, it's obviously from like he's seen it, so he knows. And,
he knows what that looked like.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and he's been in all kinds of stuff now, but he's like the guy who helped design Jason in the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah.
And he was just recently in like the Lock and Key show on Netflix and stuff. Like he's they have a whole club called the Savini Club. But anyway, he's really cool. But we're doing a whole thing just like studying all his movies, like all the Night of the Living Dead stuff. He did all that, and so he's like responsible for zombies. Anyway, I was looking at your stuff and I'm like, man, it's so weird to me, like, because he was kind of the same way. Like he just came back and was like, I could start making this, and he just does it. And it's just so, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I get jealous of people who just like go out, and especially like I said, like yourself, like you go out and you just are like, I think the makeup effects look cool. I'm just going to do it. And I think wrestling seems cool. I'm just going to do that. So I'm always interested to see like people's mindsets when they just decide like, I'm not just going to talk about it, or I'm not just going to sit around and think about it. I'm going to do the thing. So I just think that's a really cool thing you should be proud of, I guess.
Thank you.
Also, you took Game of Thrones and then you took that on into your persona. So I assume that's where House of Rose comes from.
I've never even heard of Game of Thrones. Actually.
Really? You've never heard of it? Weird.
No, that's crazy.
Has anybody ever told you look like Cersei? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. You don't technically, but it feels like you're going for that a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, there's definitely some Game of Thrones inspirations happening. Dany and Cersei are both like, I think they're awesome characters, and
right.
People are like, they're evil, and I was like, okay, yeah, but they're cool.
Well, they both had a rough life, and so like
did Cersei have that rough of a life?
You know, I don't know. Depends on how close you are with your relatives, I guess.
That's for true.
So the other one, speaking of relatives, you have a tattoo on your arm, and I saw it just now flash very briefly. I'm proud of us, and that isn't a reference. That's a reference to what?
Supernatural.
God. So Dean Winchester is my jam. And that's my boy.
That's the best intro to any subject I've ever heard. Dean Winchester is my jam.
That's him, man. Like, no. So the girl I ended up marrying, my wife, she got me into Supernatural. Like, she wanted me to watch it with her, and I was like, I'm not gonna watch some stupid WB show or whatever it is, or CW, and then I started watching it. But that dude was like the coolest guy I've ever seen in my life. And I just felt like I was like, oh, I want to connect with him so much. I just want to be Dean Winchester. He's such a badass. Yeah. And, but Supernatural quickly became like, if you're talking the first 5 seasons of that show, it's like my favorite show of all time.
I feel like there's like subgroups of Supernatural fans. And like, I get where that comes from, the first 5 seasons, because that's where they originally planned on it stopping, was after this season 5 finale. Right. But they obviously kept it. I just love it because I am a sap for characters and stories, and I just get so invested. And so now I'm just like, I don't even care what they're going up against. Like, I just want to see these characters, like, and how this ends up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I've watched it. I mean, I'm still sticking with it, and it's about to wrap up and everything. I know. I saw Jensen is going on to The Boys. I don't know if you watched that show.
Yes, now I have to watch The Boys. I've like thought about watching it before. I've seen certain episodes.
It's pretty fun.
And things. But I was like, well, now I have to watch it.
It's pretty wild. I like Carl Urban, I always say, but I think he pronounces it like Carl Urban.
Urban.
Right.
All fancy like.
He's a badass too. He's really cool in it. It's a good show. You'll like it, I think, if you like Supernatural. But now, what is there something? I'm just curious. Like, is there something about Supernatural that just really stands out to you that made you connect to that show?
Yeah. So Supernatural was the first show me and my sister are the closest, like ever. We've always been super close. No matter what, it's always been me and my sister. Like, growing up, there was like, we lived with our mom and then our dad and like things like that. So, but it was always me and her, you know what I mean? So No matter what else changed, it was always me and my sister. So we grew up very, very close. And then Supernatural was the first show me and her like really binged together, like that we sat down and watched the show together. And we both fell in love and we both loved it. And it's what started us both kind of like watching shows like from beginning to end and like getting into them and things like that. So it's like a special like little category for us. Like it's a special like hobby for us because we both are just super into it. And that show is about siblings, like at the base of it. It's about Sam and Dean and the brothers, and them fighting against the world. It's them versus the world, which is how it's seemed for me and my sister forever. And the season 9 finale, when Dean stops and he says, "I have to tell you something, I'm proud of us." Me and my sister both, first of all, started bawling, okay? And then second of all, it was like it was his way of saying, "Hey, I love you," and like everything we've been through, like I'm proud to have done it with you by my side kind of situation. And that's how me and my sister feel. You know what I mean? So
I get it. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so we got matching tattoos. She has the exact same tattoo on her arm, and we got it on my 20th birthday, I believe, and I think her like 22nd. It was because we're 2 years apart, so it was like our birthdays are a month apart. So on my birthday I got mine, and on her birthday she got hers.
That's awesome, and that's a clever tattoo to get. I'm still intending on getting like the protection symbol, the pentagon.
I've always thought about it,
so I don't get possessed.
I know. I was like, you can never be too sure. The chances are never zero. Okay.
So I always keep saying like that's my next one. But do you often have fights with each other because you're lying to each other about everything, and then you finally at the end of like that year you're like, "But you're my sister."
No.
But we're sisters. And you get like a little tear.
The single man tear. Yeah.
I was about to say Jensen's like single man tear. Like he.
The BM, the brotherly moment.
See, I knew.
Usually like, in the Impala.
Right, exactly. Man, you have no idea how bad I want that car still.
Oh, if I could have a dream car, it would be the 67 Impala.
Yeah, I still want that thing. All right, I'm not going to keep you forever, and I could talk to you about Supernatural all day long, but a lot of people tune into our show because they like wrestling.
Yeah, they're like, what is happening? They're like, you're talking about makeup, Supernatural, Game of Thrones. Like, what are we doing?
Right. What is this show? What have we just turned into? All right. So who are? I'm going to just do some rapid fire, and I'll let you out of here. Who are your favorite wrestlers? Like, who do you like? Who inspires you? Like that. Dig.
Paige.
Okay.
The Bellas were two big inspirations. I really like Seth Rollins currently. I think he's a phenomenal wrestler. Charlotte, I think she's the best. Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Those are like the first that come off to the top of my head.
No, that makes sense. I mean, all of those are really good wrestlers, so it works. So if somebody, so that would be a good, I always like asking that. I know it's like such a generic question, it feels like, but it always also feels like, you know, I've had Nick Aldis on the show and I'm like, who's your favorite wrestler? And it's Bret Hart. That was like my favorite wrestler for some reason. And so it always like helps me like get a gauge of like who inspires that, you know, just like even with music, you're like, all right, I see what you were listening to when you wrote this and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so if somebody, because the idea here is to make people want to know more about Raychell Rose, like what are some matches people could look up, like that if you were like, these are my go-tos, like that I think I did my best here?
I would say my match versus Kylie Ray at Ladies Night Out.
Okay.
And my match versus Thunder Rosa at Ladies Night Out. And my match versus Lainey at New Texas Pro Wrestling. I would say those are like my top three that come to my head of matches. I feel like I did better than I generally do, or I felt better in the match than I generally do.
Yeah. So I think I've seen, I think all of those. And No, I was really excited to talk to you because I think you've got a bright future ahead of you. So I wanted to be able to be in on like the ground floor, being like, I talked to her, like
You're
way
like, yeah,
early.
me and her go way back.
Yeah, we're bros, whatever.
It's cool.
So the reason that we know each other now is because on Friday, September the 18th, you are going to be facing off against Elena Black at Hell Hath No Fury.
Yes,
And
sir.
that is exciting. We are super excited. It's like women run top to bottom on this show, and I think that's awesome in the first place. And so I'm trying to find some ladies to come talk about it with us on the show, so it's not just a bunch of dudes just talking about the women's pay-per-view. But so Elena Black, I'm going to tell you, like, I've been researching her too. And she looks rough. Like, I mean, not like looks rough, but you know what I mean? Like
We started with I'm easy, she's rough.
Yeah. So I am nothing if not awkward. Like she looks like she goes at it in the ring. Like I've seen like matches with her where she just like looks busted up and angry, and like she just looks tough. She does not look like an easy opponent, and so it's kind of exciting to see. Right off the bat, you being such the queen, and her being like just rugged and like that kind of way about her style. I guess what I'm getting at is last night as we're recording this, I talked to Robin Reed, and so we were having a big conversation about her like putting the matches together and that sort of thing. And she talked about one of her favorite things is just putting people in the ring with each other who she thinks like should be in the ring together. And she thinks it would be exciting to see this person versus this person. And she specifically mentioned like you and Elena Black. And I'm just curious, what do you think about this? What do you think it is that she saw that she's like, I need to see these two in the same ring at the same time?
Well, Robin, she has seen me backstage at shows. She was like one of the OGs at Booker's, and she's commentated matches of mine. I believe she might have commentated Thunder and I's match together, and I've been in the ring with her as well. So I think she has a very good feel for my style of matches and what I'm willing to bring to the table, and like the passion I have for this. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure how familiar she is with Elena Black, but I mean, you can't go far in a wrestling community and not hear about Elena Black right now. She's an upcomer, but she's very talked about, I feel like, personally.
She talked about it like she doesn't know her, but she kind of described it, if I'm remembering right, like she just kind of described it as like, I've seen her a lot on video, and I've seen what she does. I've seen some of her stuff, and I was like, I got to get her in a match with Raychell Rose. Like, I've just got to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of her stuff, and like, I think she's, pretty good for, especially being newer. I mean, it wasn't so long ago that I was the new girl that was just trying to figure out, what I was comfortable with and find my stride. You know what I mean? I feel like that's what she's done recently, is find her stride. Like, or her first stride, you know what I mean? Where she knows she has her go-to, she has her move, she has her style, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's good for her, and I'm excited to be in the ring with her. As long as she leaves her little party tricks at home with the cards.
Yeah, not a fan of that.
She spoils it. It's the death card every time. That's the one she gives her opponent. You have to change it up. I don't want the death card, Elena. You're coming into my territory. You can't bring me a death card. What is wrong with you? Bring me a fun card. Bring me a queen card. Hello.
Yeah, there you go. Then maybe you guys can just hug and it'd be all good.
We don't have to hug. It's these Rona times, but like, don't bring me no death card. That's disrespectful.
I love that you directly went to like, no hugs. No hugs.
That's okay. We can wrestle, but no hugs.
Oh, man. All right, Raychell Rose, it has been awesome talking to you. It has been as fun as I expected. Thank you so much for doing this.
No problem. It's been fun.
Yeah, and so go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, just for those who need to know on the social media and everything, if they're not already following you.
You can find me on Facebook. I have a fan page that's just Raychell Rose. You can find me on Instagram at It's Raychell Rose. That's the It's Raychell Rose. The same on Twitter, It's Raychell Rose. I have a brand new Patreon. You can find me. It's just Raychell Rose. Pro Wrestling Tees, Raychell Rose. And on Twitch, actually, and YouTube. I now have Twitch and YouTube for Raychell Rose.
Really? Seems like you would have named it something more clever. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I forget things unless it's like plastered on the back of my hand. So it's Raychell Rose and or Raychell Rose for all of my tags.
Oh, listen, mine is all "This is Gary Horn." Like, that's all.
Exactly. It's Raychell Rose. That's it. That's what it is. You're here.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for doing this. It's been awesome to get to know you, and we can't wait to see you at Mission Pro. That's going to be
Thank you.
Fun time.